Well, I'm Dan and this is Dan Explains. Today is Good Friday. I've done a few videos now on Good Friday and things related to it, usually focusing on what Christ accomplished on the first Good Friday, the salvation of souls. Today, I'd like to look at that from a very specific angle by talking about this guy. More specifically, the salvation of one of the men crucified with Jesus, the man known as the penitent thief. Jesus said he would be in the kingdom of heaven that very day. Knowing that he died after Jesus, and that after Jesus died, baptism became a requirement to enter heaven, how was a penitent thief saved? Let me explain. In the Gospels, it's mentioned that Jesus was crucified with two thieves. One is called the penitent thief, and the other is called the impenitent thief. Although they aren't named, tradition holds that their names are Dismas and Dismas, respectively. The two men crucified with Jesus are mentioned in some way in all four Gospels, but the Gospel of Luke describes an interchange between Jesus and the two thieves. I'm sure virtually all of you have at least heard it. So I'll just paraphrase it rather than reciting. But while they were on their crosses, Dismas, the impenitent thief, joins into the heckling of Jesus, challenging him to save them all from their crosses, since he is the Christ after all. Dismas, the penitent thief, rebukes him since both of their condemnations were just, and Jesus' condemnation was not. To which Jesus told Dismas that on that very day he would be in paradise. This has been puzzling to some. First of all, it's mentioned in two of the other gospel accounts that both thieves heckled Jesus, which many people find contradictory. Well, they were both thieves, aka not nice guys, and being crucified probably made for a particularly bad day, so it would be no surprise if both of them were in a bad mood and heckled Jesus. However, after hanging there for a while, letting the reality of the situation sink in, Dismas repented and Dismas did not. Another thing is, Dismas wasn't baptized, and he almost certainly died after Jesus, as pointed out later when people came to break their legs and were surprised to find Jesus had already died. So why would he go to heaven? Well, the first most obvious reason is Jesus said he would, and he could have made an exception just for this one case. Jesus is God, and God can make exceptions whenever he pleases. However, that feels like an unsatisfactory explanation, and as I've mentioned in previous videos, there are no wasted words in the Bible. And if that was what this line was indicating, it seems like it would be a bit of a throwaway line. So many scholars pointed this as proof for something called the baptism of desire. A baptism of desire occurs when someone intends to come to Christ, but they die while they still have that intention, but before they can be baptized. Now, I've bumped into people who are against the idea that the baptism of desire could be a real thing, because they lean heavily on the descriptions of baptism being necessary for salvation, and usually get really hand-wavy explaining that the people in purgatory must have gone through water, or they were otherwise resurrected on earth during Jesus' crucifixion, baptized by angels, and then let into heaven, or some such thing. And Dismas must have been among them, all the while ignoring Dismas wasn't dead yet. When that's pointed out, they additionally argue that maybe Dismas had been baptized before. However, if that were the case, it would have been John the Baptist's baptism, which we know from Acts 19, John's baptism was not considered efficacious by the apostles, so that wouldn't have mattered. But like I said, no wasted words. I think God purposed this exact edge case to happen, and appear in Luke's Gospel to communicate that the baptism of desire is a real thing. Yes, baptism is the only way to be assured of salvation, but it doesn't mean God can't make exceptions for certain edge cases. It also makes sense that God would put an example of at least one of those edge cases in the Bible, to make it easier for theologians to draw the correct conclusion. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, and other topics ranging from theology to science, please press the like button. Subscribe to my channel and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon to get extra content and special perks. Link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, Until next time, have a great week and a happy Easter.